Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
You could be surprised when you open this month's utility bill, this time in a good way. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Bill credits are arriving sooner than we expected, thanks to a decision today by California regulators. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has details on how much money you can expect back.
The California Public Utilities Commission is asking the state's largest power suppliers to get electric and gas climate credits to customers early. It's part of the panel's effort to speed relief to utility customers who are overwhelmed by oversized bills. Last month, the price of natural gas soared in Southern California, more than doubling bills from a year ago. That put a pinch on the budgets of many people with fixed incomes.
It's one of the costs that you can only drive it down so far in terms of usage, unless you want to sit in the dark, you know. And I think I've done everything that I am capable of doing to minimize my usage.
The CPUC voted 5-0 to move the April gas credits of about $43 to February. They also moved a $60 electricity credit from August. That means a gas and electric customer will see a $104 credit in their next bill. That should help customers deal with the high winter gas bills.
Most of our customers were angry and frustrated with the volatility and the historical high from the commodity.
While natural gas rates are down from January, they're still higher than they were in December, and the sting of high prices is exacerbated by colder weather, which means people are using more natural gas. The high bills are also hitting poor families harder because they pay a larger percentage of their income on energy spending. Wagner says moving the climate credits is just one step that utilities and regulators can take.
We were all able to work together in a collaborative fashion, along with the Public Advocate's Office, to move up the climate credits to help combat the high bills we saw from the historically high gas prices.
The climate credits are generated from the sale of emission permits, which are bought by companies that produce carbon pollution. Natural gas credits typically appear on bills in April. Electric credits are issued at the end of summer. San Diego Gas and Electric officials say that if you just got your January bill, you're not going to see the credit until you get your next bill in February. But if you're due to get your February bill soon, that $104 credit will come quickly. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And there are a few things that you can do right now to save money on your energy bill. A few of those things include turning off electronics when not in use, charging when and how you do household chores, and signing up for bill assistance as well. We've outlined all of the tips in detail on our website, kpbs.org. Mental health professionals and environmental organizations say they're feeling optimistic about the goals laid out by the new chair of the County Board of Supervisors. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer has reactions to the first State of the County address by Supervisor Nora Vargas.
Buenas noches, and I am so happy to see all of you tonight. Good evening, everyone.
Vargas focused her speech on improving quality of life for San Diego families. She said part of that means helping people keep a roof over their heads and expanding mental health care. Vargas said the board allocated $30 million for mental health services for children and youth and $2 million for homebound people. And this year, it'll launch mental health screenings for all middle school students in the county.
The numbers used to be about 1 in 5 individuals would experience a mental health concern in any given year. That number looks like it's dropping down to 1 in 3 coming out of the pandemic. So it's changed pretty significantly.
CEO of the National Alliance on Mental Illness San Diego, Catherine Nicario, says that investment is especially important now. The need is great, and it also ties into another crisis in the county, homelessness. Vargas also said the county will invest millions on services and housing to LGBTQ youth.
there's a higher level of rejection and trauma that tends to occur in that community. And many times when that rejection and trauma does occur, that rejection often results in somebody being asked to leave their home and at a very young age, at 15, 16, 17 years old. So they're automatically put into a situation of experiencing homelessness.
Another highlight of the speech was the local economy and environment. Vargas said she aims to improve transportation and air quality by expanding bus and trolley access, including free public transit passes to anyone 24 and younger. That's welcome news to the Director of Policy at Climate Action Campaign, Mikey Knabb.
And the way that she talked about ensuring justice through our investments in world-class transit is exactly the right tone. And we're looking forward to watching that manifest through her leadership.
Vargas additionally discussed strengthening public safety, reducing food insecurity, expanding child care services, and supporting small businesses during her State of the County address. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Community leaders who want to stop future plans for Friendship Park hope President Biden will listen to them. Over 40 philanthropists, civic and religious leaders are signing on to a letter to the president. They are upset with the plan to build a large 30-foot wall at the beach location. The letter calls the plans a travesty and a continuation of Trump-era policies. Most people never get a chance to legally re-enter the United States after being deported. Those who do often find themselves stuck in a precarious limbo. KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis spoke with several former deportees about their transition back to life in the U.S.
Yolanda Barona was detained and deported in 2011 for working without legal authorization. In an instant, she was forced to leave behind her 2 young children in San Diego. Barona was finally allowed to return in June 2022. We met her in San Isidro just as she crossed the border for the first time. Our interview was cut short when she saw her daughter and hugged her for the first time in nearly 12 years. A few months later, we caught up with Barona in her home in San Diego. She was still incredibly happy about being reunited with her children again.
For me, the most marvelous thing is to be able to kiss my children, to hug them. Things that were denied to me for 11 and a half years, that were taken from me in an instant.
Barona is grateful to be back. She lives with her husband, Hector Barajas, also a former deportee. But their return, it just hasn't been what they expected.
We were homeless, like people who don't have a place to live. That was our reality. And now we are grateful for this little patio and home.
She says landlords refused to rent to them because they had no credit history. They eventually got housing through Barajas' military benefits. It's unclear exactly how many formerly deported people are allowed to return to the U.S. KPBS asked multiple federal agencies, but none of them said they tracked this data. Robert Irwin is a professor at UC Davis. In 2017, he helped start the Humanizing Deportation Project. It was just after the record number of deportations during the Obama administration, and just as former President Donald Trump was regularly demonizing immigrants.
And so some people imagined that they were just kind of criminals, or they were people who could easily readjust to life in Mexico or wherever they were going because that's where they were from.
In reality, many consider the U.S. their home. Jack Aviles was brought here when he was 6 months old. He grew up in San Diego and joined the Marines. Then, in 2001, he was deported after being charged with possession of 2 unregistered firearms. He was allowed to return in 2019, but the shadow of deportation has stayed with him.
I had to work my social, I had to establish credit, I had to rent, I had to pay bills. So all that is like, yeah, we got our to return home, but we didn't have like opportunities.
Aviles lives in constant fear of being deported again. He says he mostly keeps to himself, avoids big crowds, and does everything he can to stay out of trouble, even when he's just walking across the street.
Think about crossing the street, am I jaywalking, am I not? I mean, literally, that's how I'm very, very paranoid, because I don't want to ruin it.
Aviles thinks of himself as a patriot. He understands that deportations are necessary, especially for violent criminals with no roots in the country. But he doesn't understand why the punishment is so severe for people with non-violent offenses. For migrants like him, who raise families, work, and make positive contributions to their communities.
I served my sentence for the crime, but then they gave you a much harsher one, which didn't make sense to us. It still doesn't. Yeah, we're grateful for the opportunity, but that didn't kind of make sense.
Family members, including American citizens, aren't spared from the trauma of deportation. Michael Paulson became a single father of 3 young boys when his wife, Emma Sanchez, was deported in 2006.
I held a full-time job, a part-time job, and I used to take the kids to Mexico on the weekend. It's pretty hard. A lot of stress, a lot of financial burdens. You got 2 rents, 2 households to stock for food.
Sanchez was allowed to return in 2018 after spending 12 years in Mexico. Time her family will never get back.
I lost 12 years of my life. I should have been in a house with her already, and I had to start over. I had no financial money saved. Everything I made, I had to spend to support the family. It's really hard, yeah. So it's like starting over. It's like 12 years of your life is gone.
During the long separation, Sanchez dreamed of the day when her family would finally be reunited again.
It feels like we are destined to continue to suffer because you have this hope and optimism of coming back, but you get here and it isn't what you expected. In my case, my children grew up.
To ease her pain, Sanchez goes through hundreds of old family photos she keeps in boxes. They remind her of happy times, but also of what could have been. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
San Diego's premier rehab center for veterans is under heavy scrutiny by lawmakers and oversight agencies. iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano has the story.
Veterans Village of San Diego is a renowned nonprofit that offers substance use treatment, employment, housing services, and other support to veterans and their families. They're best known for creating Stand Down, an annual event that connects homeless veterans with community resources. It's been replicated in over 200 cities. Last year, an iNewsSource investigation exposed numerous health and safety issues at Veterans Village's drug treatment program on Pacific Highway, including widespread drug use and multiple overdoses on the campus. A lot has happened since then. A California healthcare agency has 8 investigations underway into Veterans Village, and San Diego County officials have an admissions freeze on new clients. That freeze has now lasted for a full 6 months. Veterans Village CEO Akila Templeton has said the organization continues to provide high-quality care in the face of many challenges, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the opioid crisis, and an industry-wide staffing shortage. In recent months, lawmakers like Congressman Mike Levin have stepped in to help Veterans Village. So has State Senate President pro tempore Tony Atkins, who is a big supporter of the nonprofit's work. The lawmakers said they're monitoring the situation, speaking with stakeholders, and hoping for a good outcome at Veterans Village. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano.
And iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg on combating a rise in pedestrian and bicyclist deaths. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Are we finally seeing the beginning of disinflation? Well, that depends on a few things. Gloria Pazomino helps us understand it all.
I will say that it is gratifying to see the disinflationary process now getting underway, and we continue to get strong labor market data.
The Federal Reserve raised interest rates again Wednesday by 0.25 percentage point, marking the lowest rate hike since last March, signaling perhaps their aggressive hikes are working to calm inflation. But on Friday, they will be watching the first U.S. jobs report of 2023 to see how the labor market is responding.
Particularly, we're going to be watching the average hourly earnings, because that's going to give us a clear indication of whether or not wage pressures are coming down, even as the labour market stays very tight. If they are able to bring down wage pressures fairly well Whilst the labour market stays strong, that means that they can potentially achieve this soft landing that they've been aiming for.
But there is another cog in the economic wheel, the debt ceiling. President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are both signaling optimism that their two parties can come together long before the U.S. reaches default in June.
I think at the end of the day, we can find common ground. I really do.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell warned if an agreement is not made to raise the debt ceiling, the Fed won't be able to protect the economy.
There's only one way forward here, and that is for Congress to raise the debt ceilings, and any deviations from that path would be highly risky.
Gloria Pasmino, KPBS News.
Recent artificial intelligence tools appear to be able to do what humans can and faster, and that means some people could be out of a job. However, as Vanessa Yurkovich found out, experts say the technology will also create employment opportunities.
Which jobs is AI coming after first?
If you're a middle manager, you're doomed. Any kind of commodity salesperson, report writers and journalists, accountants and bookkeepers, and oddly enough, doctors who are looking, who specialize in things like drug interactions.
Do you mean out of a job,
No.
or you mean that part of your job?
That part.
Okay.
That's the relief a lot of Americans are looking for right now. The explosion of ChatGPT, an AI platform, showed us it could do a lot of what we humans do at work and faster.
Will it take my job?
Yes and no. It's not going to replace you. Someone who knows how to use it well is going to take your job, and that's a guarantee.
By 2025, the World Economic Forum predicts that 85 million jobs will be displaced by automation and technology, but it will also create 97 million new roles. We've seen it before in the auto industry.
While the auto worker may be displaced because they are not as good at welding or as painting as the robot, there's probably 35 people that have to be involved in the creation and maintenance of that device that welds better than a person.
And that's what happened at Carbon Robotics. Former auto workers now building an AI laser weeder in Detroit for farms.
It's a direct result of the history of auto manufacturing that we have that skill set available to us all in one place.
The laser weeder, still operated by a human but run by AI, can do the work of between 40 to 80 people, says the CEO, filling roles that are hard to find humans for.
Labor is harder and harder to find every year, particularly farm labor. And an AI system like ours that can do that job automatically saves a lot of time, money, effort.
This music is composed solely by artificial intelligence called Ava. It even has an album you can stream. AI music is more affordable. There's no producer, composer, or artist to pay.
It's taken away opportunity from songwriters, producers, and artists, right? So the people are trying to feed them for their families.
Something similar is happening in the art world, leading artist Kara Ortiz and two others to file a class action lawsuit against 3 AI art companies for copyright infringement. Ortiz claims they're using her name and art to train the AI.
It's feast and famine for most of us. We go job by job. And what happens when there's a little bit less work to go around?
Stability AI, one of the companies named, says the suit misunderstands how AI and copyright law work, adding it intends to, quote, defend ourselves and the vast potential generative AI has to expand the creative power of humanity. The 2 other companies did not respond.
I never thought we'd be here. It's like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
My father tried to teach me human emotions.
There's a wonderful scene in the movie I, Robot. Detective Spooner hates robots. And he says,
can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece?
And the robot looks up and he goes,
can you?
Every one of us is not Mozart or Rembrandt or Picasso or choose your super famous, amazing artist or artisan. We're just people. This is not coming to kill us. It's coming to help us.
And speaking of technology and jobs, one South Bay school is helping students imagine what's possible for their future careers. Hundreds of students from different Catholic schools participated in St. Rose of Lima's Tech Fair, and they were offered hands-on experiences with drones and robots, as well as demonstrations by fire and rescue crews.
It gets to show you really see what we can do, and
it's just fun overall.
I like to see all the other schools, and it helps me like create new ideas for what to build.
The school hopes that this inspires students to consider careers in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. An Arctic blast is placing millions of people under warnings in the Northeast. The National Weather Service calling this an epic generational cold front. Isabel Rosales brings us the timeline for when the dangerous weather will pass.
Maine to northeast Pennsylvania bracing for wind chills, falling as far as minus 50 degrees or more, according to a National Weather Service forecast. Frigid temperatures and powerful winds, gusts forecasted to blast up to 40 miles an hour.
If people are outside in weather that is extremely cold, below 20 degrees, frostbite sets in very quickly and you can die.
A whopping 15 million people expected to be under severe cold warnings across the region through Saturday.
The important fact is going to be remaining indoors this weekend, if at all possible. This is a great reason to stay home and maybe watch Netflix.
The Weather Service predicts the Arctic assault will move out relatively quickly by Sunday afternoon. Unlike the relentless ice storm that's been pummeling the south and central U.S. for most of this week.
Trees are falling with all the ice.
Forecasters say warmer temperatures arrive by late Thursday, but ice over neighborhoods will take a while to thaw out. Lights out. Over 500,000 people are still without power from Texas to Tennessee, tracked by Power Outage US. And melting roads could remain slick and dangerous as rain continues in several areas through Thursday evening. Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
And so far this week, over 6,200 flights have been canceled in and out of the U.S., including more than 700 since this morning.
Well, we're in pretty good shape in Southern California, and this forecast on KPBS features a little bit of a subtle warming trend through Friday, mainly in the interior. It's barely noticeable closer to the coast, but just a smidge warmer, and we're looking bright. Good deal of sunshine out there, dry, pleasant weather is with us. Now, as we step into the second half of the weekend and early next week, there will be a disturbance that brings a little more cloud cover in. It'll be breezier, and will also turn just a little bit cooler into early parts of next week. But in the meantime, a moonlit sky, 46 for our low tonight. And across the region, you can see there will be some 30s into Mount Laguna, Borrego Springs 43, Chula Vista 47, Oceanside 41. And Futurecast, you're going to notice this first of two storms in the near term. First one is going to bring some rain and some mountain snow to areas far to our north. You need to be north of Fresno to find anything meaningful out of this. Really, rain showers will be likely into San Francisco late tonight into early Friday. A little sliver of snow showers and snow. And the snow will become a little more widespread for a time into the central and northern Sierra. Over 300 inches of snow, just fantastic across the Sierra. And the beat goes on here with an above average, great snow season. Above average doesn't quite sell it the way the numbers are stacking up to the historical context. But warmer weather for the interior. Beautiful day. 70 at Escondido. We're still in the 60s in Oceanside, 67 into San Diego. Mount Laguna about 50 degrees. Not a bad day for a hike. Just be safe if you head out. And Saturday's forecast, just a little warmer. Again, subtle change, but a little bit warmer. But then, as we look ahead to the stronger of the two storm systems for Saturday night through Sunday, this one will bring some rain showers as far south as probably Orange County, or at least Los Angeles County. Widespread rain, mountain snow to the north. We're going to have a hard time seeing much this far south beyond maybe a sprinkle or two. Maybe a little bit of rain and some drizzle will be possible. But again, it's most likely farther north that we see more than a couple tenths of an inch. A couple of showers possible, though, into the city and the coast for Sunday. And then into the inland areas, a little bit of rain. Patchy drizzle here and there, relatively light rain. Mountains turning much cooler, back into the 30s for Monday and Tuesday. And a quick look at the desert forecast. Beautiful weather out there through the next 5 days. I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
And it looks like we're looking at 6 more weeks of winter, at least according to Punxsutawney Phil. That's the groundhog's prediction after seeing his shadow this morning. And did you know there's a thing called Groundhog Day syndrome? It's the term some use to describe the feeling that you're reliving the same day over and over again. Mandy Gaither has tips to help break out of your rut.
If you only had one day to live, what would you do with it?
Made popular by Hollywood, the idea of Groundhog Day syndrome is simple. It feels like each day is the same. You're reliving it over and over again.
Although it's not a psychological diagnosis, it is a feeling that is familiar to many.
Cleveland Clinic psychologist Susan Albert says when we do the same things over again, we can get bored. You may even feel trapped.
We get used to our environment and we start tuning it out. On the upside, this helps our brain to relax. We don't have to focus on everything. The downside is that we no longer experience things in the same way. It becomes less vivid and exciting.
Albert says breaking the boring cycle starts with being mindful. Each day, be present, both mentally and physically.
Feel, taste, touch. Look at that experience as if you are doing it for the very first time.
It's about waking up your mind. So Albert says try new things, meet new people, go to a different restaurant, taste a new food, learn a new skill, try a different hobby, or take a trip somewhere you haven't been.
When we do new activities for the very first time, it triggers new neural pathways in our brain. It forms new connections. That's what leaves these lasting and vivid memories.
Breaking out of the norm can help you break out of your rut.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.